White oppressive forces are waging a covert war against Black people that most don't understand. This is why I educate to liberate. Those who know must teach, African proverb. Do you know that a false derogatory identity can be assigned to a targeted population by how they see themselves repeatedly depicted within the media? This is because people often becomes those false derogatory media depictions of themselves that they've accepted as being their reality. Therefore, those who control the people's media images are able to negatively steer their culture by merely negatively steering their media images. Likewise, because our oppressors controls our media images, they therefore negatively distorts our media images in order to covertly negatively steer our culture. The true reason why millions of us now self-identify by the N-word, sags our pants, and glorifies pimps is because we don't control our media images. Our oppressors does. They negatively distort our media images in order to covertly negatively steer our culture. This isn't scapegoating. It's a social science fact. As I've stated earlier, a group's identity is shaped by how they repeatedly see themselves depicted within the media. And our media images are being negatively distorted by our oppressors. Most people naively believe that the media reflects our reality, but in truth, it is more often we that imitate what we see and learn from the media. A group's identity is greatly shaped by how they repeatedly see themselves depicted within the media. Because people often imitate and becomes those false derogatory media, stereotypical media depictions of their group that they've accepted as being their true reality. Therefore, those who control the people's media images literally control their culture. It's a true and well-proven social science called media social engineering. Because white oppressive forces controls our media images, this therefore allows them to negatively steer the Black culture while misleading us to believe that we're negatively steering ourselves. They took control of the hip hop industry and weaponized it against the African American culture. The true reason why millions of African Americans now self-identify by the N-word, calls our women by the B-word, sags our pants, and glorifies pimps are actually all testaments of the immense power of white negative media social engineering. This is the reality that we must realize. This is not a conspiracy theory. It's the absolute truth. The subliminal manipulation of large targeted populations through media social engineering is a real and well-proven social science that white oppressive forces have totally mastered. They're using it to covertly negatively steer the African American culture. We African Americans are more susceptible to negative media social engineering because we've been totally stripped of our true identity and culture during the enslavement of our ancestors. Although the white-controlled hip-hop music industry is presently being used for the negative media social engineering of the African American culture, it was first done by white oppressive forces through Black exploitation films. Beginning during the 1960s, Black exploitation films is a term used in coined in the 1970s to refer to Black films that were aimed at a Black audience, featuring African American actors in lead roles. The films frequently depicted stereotypical characterizations and glorification of violence. It was that era's Black exploitation films that first conditioned African American youths on a national level to believe that it was cool and trendy, a term of endearment to call themselves by the N-word. And those films, written, directed, and produced by white people, Black actors were hired to shuck and jive and repeatedly call themselves by the N-word. This N-word indoctrination process was repeated and reinforced within countless many times in different mini movies. Those films were well received by the African American audiences because they provided us with a cinematic black heroes on the silver screens and a portrayal unseen in most Hollywood pictures prior to that time. Therefore, African Americans flocked to the theaters and drove to see themselves being represented as heroes on the big screen. Many black audiences believing that those fictional movie caricatures were true, accurate representation of our group as a whole began imitating what they saw in the movies. This included self-identifying ourselves by the N-word. Through this system, millions of African Americans were socially engineered to self-identify by the N-word. They did this to us because words, when repeated often enough, have immense power over the subconscious mind. Repeated words shapes our thoughts, and our thoughts, when held long enough and repeated often enough, becomes a belief. A belief then becomes our biology. We psychologically become the words we repeatedly call ourselves, the words that we believe ourselves to be. This is why women that proclaim themselves as being bees, the B word, often become stubbornly unreasonable. It's also why men that proclaim themselves as being thugs are more likely to engage in a fight than to avoid one. Words put a spell upon our subconscious mind. We function based upon the words we assign to ourselves. This is a psychological phenomenon that white oppressive forces have thoroughly researched. When we repeatedly call ourselves by the N-word, this psychology conditions us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, subordinate, and inferior identity that aids the white society in maintaining its social dominance and social capital over the black population. White social scientists describe what they've done to black people as merely instilling a value system into the collective subconscious minds of the black masses that makes us adhere to the authority and existing infrastructure of the white dominant society. The additional reason why they socially engineered us to call ourselves by the N-word is because to subjugate and control a large targeted population, the first step is to neutralize their alpha males, aka those possessing warrior spirits. These are the males that are psychologically wired to protect their females and protect their communities. White social scientists neutralize black alpha males by socially engineering millions to self-identify themselves by the N-word. Because the N-word psychologically conditioned us to perceive ourselves through a false, inherent, inferior identity that makes us less likely to stand up against the white society. And when we call each other by the N-word, we also dehumanize each other. This is this makes it easier to mistreat each other. Through negative media social engineering, white oppressive forces have created an elaborate psychological prison for the collective minds of the black population. By using the N-word, they've literally created a psychological prison for our minds, and those black people who don't critically think never notices their mental chains. That's it for now. I'm recording this at 1 a.m, so it's pretty late. I'm exhausted. It's time for us to wake up to our reality, and there are people working hard behind the scene to keep us ignorant from the truth. They feed lots of disinformation to our community. What I provide to you is the truth. One love and peace.